Package delivery people of Reddit, what's the weirdest thing you've seen on the job? Delivering a pizza one night. I got up to the door and rang it. As I'm waiting I keep hearing this repeated short sound. I kept looking up and couldn't see anything. As the customer opened the door I looked down at my feet. There was a chicken that snuck up on me. I delivered pizza and in black. Once I delivered to this house, and as I'm walking up I hear a young kid say the pizza man is a ******. I hear this voice from inside, and I'm just blown away. The adult comes outside and gets the pizza. No apology, no addressing the situation. Just a quick transaction. I guess I didn't see anything weird, but I heard a really racist kid. I delivered produce to people's houses during graveyard hours and we would get the same customers weekly. On our Wednesday nights, I would make deliveries out to houses up in the mountains in the middle of the night. Always had to deliver to a customer that just has a bunch of mannequins that were out lined up in front of their house. Nothing necessarily happened, but I was always scared as hell delivering to that house. Oh yeah, and I've had a gun pulled on me before delivering to those secluded houses late at night. I was a process server for about a year. Mostly for people not paying bills or child support, so I frequently served the same people multiple times. This one lady always answered the door in a robe open in the front acting like there was nothing going on. At least 3 or 4 times. Not flirty or anything, just boobs and bush for all to see. I had another lady ask me if there was anything she could do to not have me serve her while stroking my arm. I served papers to a couple that I knew previously. They were regulars at a restaurant I worked at and were great tippers. We knew each other by name. It wasn't awkward at all, and they invited me in and asked how I was. I went back 2 weeks later to serve them again, and the wife broke down crying begging me not to serve them. That was rough. And finally, I had a guy at a construction company punch me in the face and block me from leaving. He said he was going to call the cops on me for trespassing if I didn't take the papers back. I laughed, took out my phone, and called the cops. I've never seen a guy move his foot faster than after he heard me say hi, I've been assaulted and am being held against my will at blah 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 construction and my assaulter would like to talk to you, hold the phone to the douche. Edit. One more. I had to serve a doctor with an order to appear which has to be served to him as opposed to a subserve, which is where I can leave it with a secretary or roommate. In my experience doctors are the worst to serve. The document had a check to reimburse for documents they had to provide at an earlier time. I told the office manager that I had to deliver the check to drive so and so without telling her I was actually serving him at the same time. She is annoyed and goes and gets the doctor out of surgery to come take delivery of the check in the waiting room. He came out in scrubs holding his hands up to not get them dirty. I then served him the papers and he was super cool about it. The office manager looked like she wanted to kill me. I'm not a delivery person, but my BF was laying under the aircon in just his boxer shorts on a crazy hot day when a delivery arrived. He answered the door and the guy took one look, pointed, and my BF realized his junk was hanging out for all to see. I bet that delivery guy had a fun day. I worked for 4 years as a FedEx delivery driver. I went to go deliver a box to this one house that was on a moderately busy street. Just as I was going up the driveway I noticed at the corner of my eye something small moving at a distance of around 25 feet. I looked and it was a baby of about 2 years old in diapers getting ready to cross the street. I yelled at the baby stop and it actually did. I told him to come to where I was and had him sit on the lawn while I rang the doorbell of the house I was delivering to. A lady answered the door and I asked her if she was missing a baby. She was shocked and I explained that there was a baby about to cross the street and is now on her front lawn. She immediately stood by the child while I went to 2 other houses asking if they were missing a child. The police were called. After waiting for about 15 minutes we heard a woman's voice yell, "Oh, there you are," and we saw a woman in her late 60s walk up to the kid and the baby immediately wanted to be picked up by this woman. She thanked us profusely and said her daughter would kill her if she found out what happened. The police arrived and everything was sorted out. What happened? The grandma left the garage door open and the baby got out from a door left ajar. The baby walked a distance of about 2 blocks before he got to where I was and was actually stepping down from the curb onto a moderately busy street. TLDR, went to deliver a box, saw a baby trying to cross the street. Front yard had a 2-foot tall wire fence, which I thought was weird, but whatever. Run up to the door, drop the package off, and as I'm walking back to my truck, I see a bit of movement out of the corner of my eye. I look down and there is a massive tortoise maybe a foot or 2 away from me. It scared the shit out of me. Who has a tortoise pet hanging out in their front yard? I was not a package delivery person, but I delivered food for a Japanese restaurant in college. This is northeast of my favorite weird interactions in a delivery that I have talked about here before. I was sent to this house with an order of a steak hibachi and a couple of sushi rolls that added up to something like $19.60. I like to call before I got to a place, just to give people a bit of a heads up, so by the time I got to the door it was already open. In the doorway stood a chubby kid, about 9 or 10 years old, that reminded me a lot of the kid from Bad Santa, but without the curly hair. I tell him the total as I pass off his food. He hands me a $20 bill, and with a straight face he smugly says, "Keep the change, pal." Immediately after, he closes the door, and I stood there for a second trying to process what just happened. When I got back to my car I noticed the time, and realized it was way too early for that kid to be home from school. I couldn't help but laugh at the whole situation. No wonder he sounded a bit cocky when he told me that I could keep the $0.40 in change. This kid probably faked being sick so he could stay from school and was probably in there watching TV or playing video games while eating sushi and feeling like a big shot. I know I was old at that age. I was a door-to-door salesman, so I guess you could argue I was delivering a pyramid scheme to unsuspecting homeowners. A man sporting an erection, with only abused and yellowing tighty whities partially shielding me, ran out of his front doorway and down through his dead garden towards me. All I heard was my partner yelling for me to get running, so as I turned I see this crazed old white man leaping off his lawn onto the road hightailing it towards me. I ran by a flock of seagulls. I was delivering sandwiches for Jimmy John's one night and found the apartment. 2 very drunk half-naked girls opened the door. They paid for the food, giggling the whole time, and asked if I wanted to come in. They were hanging all over me. One of them kissed me on the cheek. Pretty sure they wanted one of those porno-like delivery man scenes to go down. Had to turn them down, as I was, and still am, taken and my girlfriend worked at the same store and was there waiting for me. Sorry ladies, only so much of me to go around. This happened to a friend of mine. They drove down a driveway that was at least 2 miles long and very muddy. Once she made it to the end she saw a few turkeys that chased her all the way to the door. She noticed that there was also a very large cat sleeping on the roof of the house. Then, when the man opened the door 3 pugs ran out to greet her. As she was walking back to her car 2 baby goats trotted out of the woods and watched her leave. Not too odd, but I found it hilarious. Used to work delivering food overnight in Texas. One time I was delivering at a Jack in the Box and while unloading, the whole crew, which is pretty much 2 to 3 ppl overnight, decided to take a break. So they locked down the store, drive-thru still open, and went to their cars and smoked weed while watching the drive-thru line just get backed up to the street. Funniest thing I ever seen. Seasonal ups worker here. Got flagged down by an old guy wearing only a robe and no shoes. Seemingly came out of nowhere. Wasn't sure what was up. It was maybe 6 AM so still dark and my ass wasn't stopping. He catches me about a block away delivering to a house. I apologize like I was in a hurry and didn't see him. He asks me if I'm going to hell and in the awkward silence hands me a fruitcake and a thick stack of evangelical religious literature. Shipper, but the ups chick's reaction was priceless. Worked for a company that made x-ray equipment and needed to ship some testing equipment. Packaged it, insured it, waiting for ups. Driver asked why thing was insured for $35,000. It was because it was a preserved human head used for calibrating x-ray equipment. Ups driver did not want to take it.